everyone, and welcome to The Download, where we bring you discussion and analysis from a Catholic perspective. Today is Friday, May 19th, 2023. I'm Michael Voris here with the two co-hosts for today. Simon Rafe, who's like regular co-host now. He's here most of the time. Nick, who transfers around.
Every single episode.
Yeah, everyone.
Everyone.
Give him some time off here. And joining us in the guest host seat is David Gordon. Hello, David.
How's it going, Michael?
Doing very well, thank you. All right. Gun control. It's been a hot-button political topic for quite some time. Is there a clear Catholic stance on the matter? What's the acceptable range of opinions from a Catholic perspective? We're going to hope to dive into all of that a little later in the show. But first, we're going to be talking with one of our reporters and producers, Dr. William Mahoney, who's out in Jersey, about Cardinal Blaise Supich pushing for gun control. Hey, B, what else do you have for us on this? I mean, really, hey. Blaise Supich, bang, bang.
Well, we don't know much about guns here in New Jersey, of course, but what I'll say is that the Supreme Court, they upheld a ban on assault rifles in Illinois that Governor J.B. Pritzker signed into law there. So that will be dealt with in the appellate courts now. And Cardinal Supich came out very quickly with a statement hailing this decision, talking about mass shootings and going over that information, and basically offered the seamless garment theory that he inherited from Cardinal Bernardine. And so, yeah, he was touting that. He's very much on that, we could call it the liberal side of that question.
Is there a strain of Catholic thought that says you shouldn't be able to defend yourself with a gun because you might kill somebody?
No. I mean, Catholic teaching, of course, is that you defend yourself. It's always a question of your intent is you can use deadly force to defend yourself, depending on the threat. Of course, your intent is never to kill, to murder, or anything like that. But you can use deadly force to defend yourself. The weapon is kind of inconsequential. So, whether you use a knife or a gun, I mean, that's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to kill somebody besides a gun, although gun gets all the headlines. What do you think Supich is kind of up to here? Is it just, I'm just going to go check another box on the Democratic woke side and, prove my bona fides there? Or is it just more, or does he actually believe all of this stuff?
I think he believes it from the way he talks about it, but I also think that he's very much in bed, so to speak, with the Democrat Party. We know that he's perfectly fine with giving Holy Communion to pro-abort politicians, practicing homosexuals, the divorced and remarried, don't have annulments. We know he's completely fine with all of that. He once said, actually, early on when he was a cardinal there, he said that he didn't want the communion rail to be a place for those discussions. Of course, no discussions happen at the communion rail. It's a place to receive the Lord, and it's his job.
Like he even knows what a communion rail is.
Well, that's the second point too. For someone who has shown that he doesn't care very much at all for tradition, TLM, and any of that stuff. He's not the least bit interested. I'm surprised he used communion rail as well in that analogy. But so he's perfectly fine with giving our Lord over, which of course is a dereliction of his duty as a bishop, because one of the gifts of the bishop to teach, to sanctify, and to govern. And that's a very important thing. And part of his governance is to enforce canon law, which quite clearly says that someone in grave, obstinate sin causing scandal is to be prohibited from communion, and in certain cases, when corrected, to be excommunicated. And that is for the good of the person's soul as well as for the entire body of the church. So he's fine with all of that. So I think he does believe what he's saying. I think he's in bed largely with the Democrats. Remember how he treated Father Cupich when he sided with Mayor Lori Lightfoot because Father, upheld Catholic Church teaching on LGBT, whatever, I forget the alphabet thing. But, so yeah, he's on the wrong side of most things.
Sure. David's got a question for you.
William, sure. Now, as we all know, Archbishop Supich reigns over the Archdiocese of Chicago, which is a hub of fatherlessness. And as we all know, fatherlessness is the greatest predictor of who is going to be a mass shooter, who is going to grow up antisocial, break laws, commit crimes, and so on. I imagine, since Supich is so concerned with ending violence, that he's called out fatherlessness fatherlessness and the sexual revolution with every bit as much strength and as robustly as he has the gun movement, right?
I believe it's on his coat of arms. I've never heard him talk about that. He has said positive things like pro-life things. I do. To be fair to him, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, he did put out a statement saying that that was a good thing as well, and it was mostly a good statement. Of course, it was all mixed in with the seamless garment stuff, which is again something he inherited from his predecessor, Cardinal Joseph Bernardine, which was this idea that all the moral issues are kind of this seamless garment. They're all connected. So abortion's on the same level as climate change and, immigration or whatever. It's just all one big blob. So, but no, I've never heard him speak specifically on fatherhood. No.
I don't see how he could, seeing as his stance on, for example, sodomy. If sex isn't ordered towards procreation, then and that would be what is requisite for sodomy to not violate the moral law. Then, if sex can be used outside of procreative and unitive purposes, then of course that gives rise to fatherlessness by its very nature, because then people are using sex, fornicating outside of the covenant of marriage, and you're going to see that. So the silence and perhaps the complicity on the issue of sodomy and gay marriage, I think that would play in to the stance on fornication, the sexual revolution, and then guns in general.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, fornication is like a gateway drug, if you will, that opens up to worse perversions. I mean, once you're okay with that, okay, so if you're fornicating and you're not doing this the way that the church teaches, well, why would you criticize someone else who, gets their jollies in a different way, and so on and so forth? And then abortion is intimately connected to that. The church fathers even talk about the connection between lust and abortion. They're intimately connected. So. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, B. So what would guys like Supich, all these ones that have these gun violence pushes where, we need to restrict guns, we need to do all this stuff. You have good Catholic families in your diocese, and, guns are restricted now. You have your nonviolent statements, and someone breaks into their home and is now trying to attack their family. What are these? Because I never see what they say. What should we do in these circumstances? It's restrict guns. Let's not have violence and all that. But these are not the people who are violent in the first place. And what are they supposed to do if they are attacked? Because they never talk about that. What do you think they think about that?
Someone like Cardinal Supich thinks about that?
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, the way these people act, and as we see how some of these attorneys general are acting in different states, who are Soros funded, it would seem that if they break into your house and you don't offer them all your goods, you owe them $10,000. I mean, they just have everything upside down and backwards, and you're living in bizarro world. So I really don't know what the response is to that. It would be something crazy. The answer for when liberals do something and it's very destructive, as it always is, their answer is always more liberalism. So, I mean.
Maybe just before we sign off, I got just one little quick, just what you think. Cardinal Supich, because of his outsized influence in the American hierarchy, when he comes forward and makes a statement like this, do you think that can have a chilling effect for other bishops around the country who don't hold that opinion, but they know, oh my gosh, if I say something, he's going to get all vengeful and all that on me?
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, we were talking about this, I think it was yesterday, about how the seminary system worked. If you reported on a seminarian and who hit on you, then it became like, why do you want to report on your brother? So I think very much that they would cause a kind of a fear that the shadow that comes over the hierarchy as a whole. And they kind of know, like, well, don't speak against Supich too readily unless you want to be punished. Yeah. He sits on the congregation for bishops too, so he has quite a bit of power.
Yeah, he does. He's sort of the American Pope, as they say. B, thanks very much for joining us. Have an extraordinarily good weekend out there in Jersey. You going to the shore?
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Going
good for you.
Books and Kegs tomorrow. They have a street thing. It'll be nice.
Excellent. All right. Have a good weekend, B. God bless.
Thank you. Bye.
Guys, what are your thoughts on all of this with the whole, Supich is a bully. I think that's pretty well established. I actually had a bishop that I was talking to and asked him who has a reputation anyway of being somewhat orthodox, and said, why don't you, bishop, say blah, blah, blah. And his direct answer, this is essentially a quote, was, if you, meaning him, raise your head above the crowd, Supich will come and chop it off. And their dioceses were hundreds and hundreds of miles away, but geography means nothing in this case. So for him to come out and make a statement like this, I think it's just like, hey, everybody, everybody have bishops. I'm the dude. I'm the American Pope. Say something and disagree with this, and you're gone.
I think what we need to look at is some interesting things with regard just to talk about gun control. Obviously, we're talking about gun control in the United States because all over the world there are different kinds of gun control. Obviously, you can go to Switzerland where it's actually like, I think practically every single person has to own a gun. Yeah. This is, of course, why this was the joke, I believe, in just before World War II, and it was like, what will happen if 500,000 Swiss are invaded by 1 million Germans? I think actually one of the Nazis said that, and the Swiss guy responded, shoot twice and go home. So the Swiss obviously have a thing there. There's certain provinces of Germany where there's a great degree of that, and obviously then there are some countries in the world, such as Australia, where there's very limited gun usage. But within the United States, of course, it's predicated on the Second Amendment, which simply says the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. Really a very interesting thing. I'm sure Dave could weigh in on this, because he's a lawyer, as a constitutionalist and so forth. But by saying the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed, that language is not saying it creates a right. It's not saying the people have a right by virtue of this Constitution that has been passed. What it's saying is it says the right to bear arms predates the Constitution. Within the American philosophy, you can argue whether or not that is the case, but within the philosophy of the American experiment, that is the presumption. And it's like the government does not get to infringe it. The other thing, interestingly, it doesn't mention muskets, it doesn't mention cannons, it doesn't mention assault rifles, it doesn't mention carbines, it doesn't mention submachine guns, it doesn't mention pistols, it doesn't mention whether they're rifled or
butcher's axes.
It doesn't mention anything. It just says arms.
Right.
So there is a case. We're talking about gun control. In New York City, I believe it is illegal to own and carry a double-edged fighting knife. I think most jurisdictions, it is illegal to carry a so-called butterfly knife. Gravity knives, switchblades are illegal in most places. This is a kind of discussion that's
kind of encourages you to go get a gun.
Well, yeah, these are the things that's not discussed. So that needs to be, I think, the context of the discussion, that there is legally. It's very spurious to say we're going to suppress any kind of weapon. Yeah, I mean, it's very legally spurious.
Well, the whole thing is people are like, well, why do you need an AR-15 to go deer hunting? It's like, first of all, you don't use an AR-15 to go deer hunting.
Second of all, it's none of your business.
Sure, but
because I want one, and the Constitution says I can, of course.
But that's a straw man in and of itself. So leaving aside the fact that 223 or 5.56 is too light of a round to effectively kill a deer because it'll shatter on bone. The purpose of the Second Amendment is, in fact, not about hunting. It's about a free people has a right to have their government fear them. It's an anti-corruption mechanism that the founding fathers desired for us to keep our liberty intact. This is what George Mason says. He says, to disarm the people is the most effective way to enslave them. George Washington says, Thomas Jefferson says, I prefer dangerous freedom to peaceful slavery. George Washington says, a free people ought not only be armed but disciplined. In the early United States, in fact, many states had laws that men of military age actually had to own guns. It's deeply baked into our tradition because it is a hedge against tyranny. And not only that, of course, the right to self-defense is extremely important. It's a fundamental right. As you point out, these are not rights that are granted to us by government. Government doesn't confer rights. God confers rights. And the funny part about people saying, well, the government is here to protect you, is actually any first-year law student has read the case in criminal law that says the police only have a duty to the community and not to the individual. So, in fact, there was a lady who was in fear for her life, I believe his abusive boyfriend or husband who was going to kill her, and she called the police when he came over to her residence, and the police didn't respond because there was a riot there. in that locale, in that city, and she did get killed. And her family tried to sue for, not loss of consortium, but something that is the analog for loss of consortium, but from the family and not the spouse. And the court said, no, the police have no duty to the individual. So you can't rely on the government to protect you. They're trying to disarm you and say, we only have a responsibility to the community, and we don't have a responsibility to you, but you still can't own a gun to protect your life. It's insane.
A little point on that also legally is that, what the duty of the police, when they arrest somebody, they're actually protecting that person from the mob. It's not, oh, let's get this serial killer off the streets so that the community is safe. No, they arrest you and put you away somewhere where the mob can't get to you. That's the rationale for putting somebody under arrest. Not charging them with a crime, putting them in jail later on, but you take them out of the place so nobody can, there can't be any sort of lynch mob thing going on. That's the point of making an arrest. So the person themselves is safe. So once again, to that point, no, the police are not there to protect you as an individual from harm. As just a regular citizen walking around who's being threatened. It's the other way around. This guy's ostensibly committed some sort of crime. They have to put him in handcuffs and take him away from the mob. But the idea that somehow you are not allowed to protect yourself or have in the world of guns. You're not allowed to have one with you or on you, and all the gun-free zones, which is where all most of the mass shootings happen. The logic just isn't there for any of this. Constitutional logic isn't there. Common sense logic isn't there. I mean, it's just not there.
Can I just add, before I defer to my illustrious co-hosts here, on that note, this flies in the face of the gospel. Christ says there will be a time to pick up the sword. You will need the sword for self-defense. And again, this goes back to the wording of the Second Amendment. There is a right that is recognized that comes not from government but from God to defend yourself and to defend your liberty, which is a precious treasure. As we all know, there's a great Thomas Jefferson quote that the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of tyrants and patriots. Yeah, exactly. And these are natural rights.
TikTok.
These are natural rights that we have that no government can infringe. And so Blaise Supich is contravening the words of the gospel. And the irony, of course...
Still.
In a different manner.
The irony, of course, is that he is doing this from his high horse in Chicago, which has some of the strictest gun control laws in all of the country, but the highest murder rate, or among the top three.
It's not a safe place.
Right.
It fluctuates quite frequently, whether they're number one or number two.
Yeah, so I think that their best, the left's best argument, it's not a great argument, but I think their best one is always the, until it happens to you, you just have no idea. That's what every time in conservative states, they're like, well, until it happens on your front door, you have no idea what it's like. Because that's whenever they push the hardest, is when it happens in a place that is not normally known for it. Like, see, you guys need to have it too. See, how do you feel now that your people have been murdered? And so that it's always this emotive argument that really works on people during those high emotional times. So that's when they push it the hardest, is like, okay, this just happened in that state or this place. Okay, like right now, we need to hurry up and do gun control right now. Yeah. Because it's never a logical argument. Because whenever you take yourself out of the situation, of course, when you just think about it clearly, it makes no sense to put all these laws into play. But you're capitalizing on highly emotive people who have been through these traumas.
And who, of course, does this? You pull every CNN live truck up in front of Sandy Hook or whatever, all the satellite trucks, the live trucks, you just pound it into people's heads and you interview anybody who's crying and everything. So, I got rid of the guns. Yeah, because the guns wake up one morning and decide to kill someone.
But the other ridiculousness with this is that they're passing restrictions such as this assault ban, assault weapon ban. Now, there are certain things that are very clear definitions within a gun of what it is. There is a rifle, which has a rifled barrel, so the bullet spins to do it. There are smoothbore weapons. We think there is a shotgun that fires shot rather than individual shells and so forth. There are various definitions. Assault weapon is not one of them.
Yeah.
Fully automatic, semi-automatic. Revolver, these are definitions. Assault weapon is not. They define assault weapon by these ridiculous things. Does it have, like, a pistol grip? Does it have a bayonet lug? apparently, you know what? Look, I've been stabbed. It is not a pleasant experience, but I don't necessarily know that if a guy had an AR-15 and he chose to stab me with it, I would be like, hey, you know what? That could have gone worse. You know, if they're painted black is the definition. These are ridiculous definitions that are, to your point, purely emotive. This is a scary-looking black gun rather than like a nice camo one, which is clearly for hunting. And it's the same gun. It's just somebody took a can of Krylon to it.
And it's always funny. It's just like whenever they bring these people before Congress and they're like, well, what is a woman? It's the same thing when they ask them to define these things. It's like, well, AR-15 means assault rifle 15, or all these different things that they come up with.
Armalite rifle.
They can never define these things. Like, what does an assault rifle mean? And they're just like, oh, well, you know, all these killings, and they can never actually do it because they're just they're showing themselves. They're just showing that the fact that they just want to get everything off the streets they can. They're going to go little by little until it's all gone.
Until it's all gone.
I have to say, constitutionally, I was sort of shocked when the Supreme Court handed that thing down. How can you pass any ban on any gun of any sort and still have yourself in line with the now I know it wasn't like the case is final. They refused to grant the preliminary injunction to hold the law, so that still has to play itself out. So they might determine, nope, you can't do that, it violates the Constitution, Second Amendment. But in the meantime, it violates the Constitution. Why wouldn't they just say, nope, that's gone?
It could be a lot of things. Judicial restraint. It could be, you know, you can regulate certain manner or, you know, functions on a gun. And this is where you'd have to look at kind of the common law and interpreting historically the Second Amendment. Obviously, they're bound to a certain degree by stare decisis and the precedent that's been handed down over the centuries, really, on this issue. So without knowing the finer points of the case, I'm not sure. It could just be a matter of judicial restraint and letting something be really adjudicated until it's ripe for a final decision that's going to be binding over all the land.
And of course, that's making headlines all over the whole liberal Twitterati and everything else. Like, oh, this is at the end of the beginning of gun control, the end of the Second Amendment, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I mean, you know, maybe they're overstating their case. I think they probably are, but that is an argument that could be made. That's what it sounds like to the common man. The Supreme Court backed an effort. That's, again, is how it's being portrayed. Supreme Court backed an effort for gun control.
I'll tell you what, I wish I had stock in Armalite right now. No, seriously, I mean, those guns will be flying off the shelves. Not that they don't fly off the shelves anyway. I mean, there's a lot of guns sold. But I think that this, you know, becomes kind of one of the things when you're talking about saying, you know, we're going to ban this particular kind of weapon and this expression of a right, not conferred by, but a right that shall not be infringed by by an amendment to the Constitution. It's similar, I suppose, to the idea you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Fine, I can't own a nuclear missile. Yeah, I mean, okay, and really, you come and you say, okay, well, why can't you yell fire in a crowded theater? Well, that is, you know, likely to cause panic, likely to cause harm, likely to cause damage. To be perfectly honest with you, if I had a nuclear missile in my backyard, I mean, it would be kind of cool, but I wouldn't be a dangerous man with it because I don't want to nuke people. You know, and I think that becomes I can't imagine a situation in which I would need a nuclear missile, but I can imagine situations in which I might need an AR-15 with the capacity to shoot 15, 20 bullets at once.
Especially, you know, talking about people like Archbishop Gustavo or someone like that, but closer to the border, a lot of these guys are ones that are pushing the gun control and all these things. And look who's coming up, right? Title 42 ends, and all these people just coming in, but, you know, just not have violence and let's care about the immigrants and all, and these are the people that are coming in and going to be pillaging places. I mean,
with guns that they were sold by the Obama administration, if you remember from Operation Fast and Furious, when they shipped fully automatic weapons to the cartels in order that they could track what was happening with them, but apparently forgot to write any numbers on them, so they couldn't.
Of course.
Yeah, the shipments went to Nicaragua and they got dispersed northerly all over the place into Mexico.
Everything goes wrong when the United States government starts sending weapons to Nicaragua. Like we've done it a number of times. It never works out well. They just need to stop that.
And somehow there's always this play between the same people who want gun control or the same people who support abortion and support euthanasia. They don't like the death penalty, though, for whatever reason. But somehow these four things kind of always you fall in the same categories of you want abortion, you're cool with euthanasia, but, you know, we should take guns guns off the street.
Look, the whole gun control debate is silly. It really is, because it's illogical. If gun control were going to work and be an effective thing, even if we're going to value absolute security over liberty and hedge against tyranny and self-protection, all of that stuff, even if we're going to cede that, which of course we wouldn't, but arguendo, the fact is, if gun control could work, all you would need to do is pass a law that said don't commit crime. Because if people followed laws, then...
We sort of have those, don't we?
Right.
No. You need a specific law. A specific law.
Don't commit crimes.
Because bad guys don't follow laws.
Right.
So gun control only restricts law-abiding, freedom-loving Americans. It does not in any way impede bad guys who, in fact, thumb their nose at the law. They're going to buy guns on the black market. They're going to get them underground. They will have access to guns. A lot of violence, a lot of gang violence is committed with automatic weapons, which are illegal unless you apply for a federal permit and go through all the paperwork that you need, which is, it's massive. So these guys...
Criminals don't generally follow the process.
Right. So the whole idea is ludicrous, and that doesn't get called out enough. From a policy perspective, the idea of gun control is absolutely ludicrous because it centrally hinges on the idea that bad guys will in fact follow laws. Secondly, from a policy perspective, if we're truly going to weigh good versus bad, and this is what you never see, and this is how you know the left is not... It's not serious. It's an ideological issue. It's not a practical issue. It's not really about saving lives. But we'd have to see the analysis between, okay, states that have higher rates of legal gun ownership have lower crime. So there's a deterrent effect in owning firearms, and this just makes sense. If you're a bad guy and you're going to rob somebody's house, are you going to pick the trained gun owner's house, or are you going to pick the liberal sissy in the neighborhood who has the sign like this is a gun-free zone? Of course, you're going to go
Until you walk into it as the criminal.
Exactly. It's a soft target. You rob us all you want. So let's see the difference between crime in these states and add that up. The number of deaths that were caused by innocent people being killed by guns, by people with guns, by bad guys with guns, and then let's weigh that against the actual number of deaths that are caused by crime involving guns. Not that that matters, because of course self-protection and the ability to protect yourself and a hedge against tyranny are per se goods. But even if it were the case that we weren't treating those per se goods, at least make your case that this will in fact protect human life, because I don't buy it. I think if bad guys have guns and good guys don't, crime will be higher and a lot more lives will be lost.
It's interesting, if you look on social media, Twitter every now and then has video like from a store camera, security camera or something, of some bad guy coming into the store and he's like, everything, blah, 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 and the store owner or somebody in the back or something pulls out a gun and shoots him. And it's like, wow, there were like 8 or 9 people in that store and he could have shot and killed every one of them. And now he's the guy laying there dead. It's interesting, the comments underneath those videos, there is this great polarization. People are like, yep, guy got what he deserved. The old chart, F around,
Fornicate around and find out.
Around and find out.
Yes.
I mean, that pops up, and then of course all the liberals are like, oh my gosh, that's just so mean. That guy could have killed, what was that, was your mother in the store, or your son, or whatever. That guy could have killed them.
Even beyond that, you see, I think that that goes to
Fornicate around, find out.
Fornicate around and find out. I love it. It's great. It's fantastic. The original is not fornicate. It's a much shorter word.
One syllable.
One syllable. That looks to a hypothetical. It's like, what happens if it had been your mother? What happens if that child had been killed? What happens if that old man had been killed? What happens if the nun there had been killed? Okay, they weren't. Here would be the thing, and it's kind of a response to the question of, do you value this man's life more than your stuff? And my response is, he clearly values his life more than my stuff, because he came in, it's like, you came in and...
Yeah, but the thing is, you also don't know, that's a good line of reasoning, but you also don't know that when he's done getting your stuff, he's going to take your life. You don't know that.
John Locke says that actually in his second treatise on civil government, that it's a reasonable assumption that if somebody is going to use force to deprive you of your property, he will also deprive you of your life. And Marx Marxists actually use that to critique Locke and say, oh, he values property over human life, which is horse feathers. But
the robber does. The guy walks in there. That's who it is. I mean, yeah, this guy can. You have no idea he's not going to kill you. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you're with another co-criminal buddy or something, and the buddy says, "Hey, Mark." Yeah. He's like, "Crap! You just said my name out loud. Now I got to kill him."
Now I got to kill him.
I mean, this kind of stuff happens all the time. And it's so quick and it's so spontaneous.
Beyond that, you walk it, you follow it through kind of logically from the perspective of the criminal, who probably isn't a particularly logical fellow. He's probably not the brightest, because that's why he's knocking over liquor stores with a gun when he's got armed guys behind the counter of the liquor store. He's not the sharpest tool in the box. He's not the sharpest double-edged fighting knife in New York City.
Better be a really good aim, too.
But he's going in with a gun and he's saying, okay, empty the till, give me the money. And the immediate response to that is, or what? You're giving me a choice. This is a bad thing that will happen to me. I will lose my money. And I do value my money because it is money and it is valuable. I value it. Or what? Or I will take your life. It is the old highwayman's thing, your money or your life. Okay, so you yourself have done this. And I choose to say, okay, neither. Bang. That's the choice. It's like you present me with a dichotomy, you present me with two options, and I go, I don't like either of them, and myself and Mr. Winchester have some points to make. Bang.
Look, I think the whole debate really needs to be reframed, because this is another instance of conservatives and God-fearing people being on defense. And if you're on defense, you're getting shellacked, you are going to lose. Whether it's over the course of a long game or over the course of a short game, and all the ground is made up at once, you will lose. Let's go on offense. Here's the real issue. These people are coming from broken families. Between about 2000 and 2018, 75% of mass shootings were perpetrated by people who came from broken homes. The issue is the sexual revolution. That's the problem. It's creating deeply unhappy people. As Pope Francis says, you have a right to a mother and a father in the home. When you don't have that, you grow up feeling resentful. You grow up feeling in a certain way betrayed. And that bitterness comes out in certain people by the most antisocial acts, the most heinous acts, where they're mad at the world and they seek to inflict injury and pain and violence indiscriminately on the community around them. That is the core issue. It is an abnormal thing to want to kill people. And we go all the way back to Charles Whitman in the University of Texas shooting. Mm-hmm. This is a man who had an abusive father. He saw him abuse his mother. He had serious psychological issues that were created by that. The mother ultimately left the father in his later life, and he had a lot to cope with. Ultimately, he took out his anger on the entire, on the state of Texas, on his own family, on his mother, on his wife. It goes back to severe psychological problems inflicted by broken families. It's the sexual revolution that's the problem. It's no-fault divorce that's the problem. It's fornication that's the problem. And when we start to take away guns, or even talk about taking away guns, we let the left get away with not addressing the issue that they caused by the sexual revolution, and the left never walks back what it's done. Progressives never look at the damage they've inflicted to the country with their programs, whether it's the New Deal, whether it's Great Society, whether it's the sexual revolution, whether it's abortion, whether it's contraception, gay marriage. They're never like, oh, pump the brakes, this isn't working, we clearly made a mistake. It's always, we pivot, we put some scapegoat out there, and we attack that. Guns are a scapegoat.
Yeah, when you look at the whole way this has happened over the last few years, last few decades, actually, and you hear people say, well, nobody except America ever seems to have these problems. It's always America is the, running wild and bang bang and Yosemite Sam and people blowing people's heads off left and right and everything. Well, first of all, there's 330 million people here in this one country. But even, if you just said, well, what's going on per capita? How is this any different than your populations never had a sense of, I have a God-given right to defend myself, and that God-given right is going to be enshrined into documents that just announce a pre-existing truth. So, sorry, what? I mean, are there not murders by other means in these other countries? And also on the point of the mental health issue here, driven by the broken homes and all that. when you were describing these shootings, people, I was thinking not very much different from serial killers. Actual, the kind of the horrible guys they make movies and stuff about and TV shows and stuff. Okay, maybe they're not shooting people, but it's the same cause. They're exercising their anger and letting it out and all their disturbances and things a different way. And they stalk their victims and all of that, as opposed to the guy who's just as angry and just as ticked off for whatever reason. He just snaps one day and goes and kills 30 people. This guy kills 30 people over the course of 30 months. It's still the same thing. In addition to your gun violence here in the United States, while no other country has it, we also have a much greater percentage of relative to the population of serial killers for the exact same thing. I mean, there are massive numbers of serial killers. So much so that they can make TV shows about them, copy the case files of it. Every single episode is about an actual serial killing that happened, or a serial killer and his, whatever his causes were. So yeah, I mean, it's a very good point, David, that this is not about the guns. It's about the people who are disturbed because it's a result of the sexual revolution and the wipeout of the family. And considering that the wipeout of the family under the guise of the sexual revolution was Marxist inspired, they have gotten to where they want to be. This is where they want to be. They want to destroy a nation, a culture, a civilization. And I'd say they're certainly in the red zone on that field, if not first and goal at the 4.
Then they can disarm us and enslave us,
Correct.
which is that's the final shoe to drop, and then we're completely dependent on government.
Yeah. And the thing now is teaching these people that they're so victimized, so oppressed, and people want them dead. And so the whole thing with the trans thing is that these people, they want you eradicated, they want you dead. Like pumping this into these people that are already mentally unstable, that everyone is out to kill them.
Yeah, Nashville.
And now, of course, you're going to see things like this. But it's basically a failure of the church is the biggest thing. In the fact of these people that are doing this, it's not that they don't value your life. They don't value their own life.
That's correct.
They see nothing. They have no cares in the world. They're just going to die. They're going to go through their life. They have nothing to live for, nothing to hope for. And it's because the church has never reached these people. Most of these people have never heard the gospel proclaimed to them in a compelling way. Or if they have heard of any Christians, it's these people who they would call hypocrites, who aren't living Christianity at all. And so these are the people that they're getting their sources from, if they're getting it from anywhere. And so it's a direct fault of the church that these people don't get. It's especially... So, I mean, if you talk about gun violence and all, it's people from the black communities, hood communities and all. They don't, you hear it in the rap songs, they don't expect to live that long.
Right.
Like Kanye West from Chicago has a whole song about how no one expects to live past 25.
Yeah.
And it's like, joke's on you, we're still alive. He made it past his 25th birthday. Kendrick Lamar has a song about like dying is what you do when you're 17. He's from Compton, LA. And all these guys, it's everywhere that they don't, the norm in these communities is not even to expect to live very long.
Yeah.
You're either going to be in jail or dead.
When I was reporting here at the local Channel 2 station, I went up to a state prison in Ionia, which is known as Boys Town, because it's just where all the juvenile offenders go, but the serious, like the guys who've killed people. And I was interviewing this young fellow. He was, I can't remember exactly, he was 15 or 16. He'd killed, I seem to think it was 2 people at a 7-Eleven, shot them and killed them. And but he, whatever the, I don't know if it's still the case in Michigan, this was back in the 90s, I don't know if the law has changed or whatever, but he actually gets transferred to some other facility and then gets released once he becomes an adult. I don't know if that was 17 or 21 or whatever it was, but I was like, what? So if you kill people when you're a teenager, you get out?
You get a mulligan. Yeah, you get a mulligan at 21. That's how
But I remember being struck when I was sitting interviewing him. He was like this nice little kid. That's how he came across. He was very, jovial and ha 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 ha. And I said to him, so, your time is up here in 2 years, whatever it was. What are you going to do? You going to go back to the same neighborhood again? And he said, yeah. I mean, that's where everybody I know is. I said, well, are you going to try to go to college or finish high school or whatever? And he said, yeah, I mean, stuff doesn't really matter that much, And I said, well, what happens if you wind up, because, if you do something, you're an adult. And as just calm as can be, he looked me dead in the eyes on camera and said, I can do 25 years if I have to. He simply didn't. I'm like, what level of hopelessness in your life to the point of you're not going to live past 25? Well, this guy didn't mind, didn't mind being behind bars for 25 years. He'd get out when he was, 45 or 50. And like, wow, how much betrayal as a culture has happened on the part of the church not trying to fix this stuff, going along and at least being quiet and sometimes promoting the very party that puts all this stuff in place. And you go down to Detroit and every major inner city, they are absolute crap holes of despair, nothing. I mean, since they legalized pot here in Michigan, you smell it everywhere, every intersection, every time a car passes you, everything. Their lives, they have no meaning to them whatsoever because they've been taught that these have no meaning to them. So keep voting Democrat because you'll get an Obama phone.
Did you see the article recently? I don't know if you did. You would be interested in this, Dave, because I know you did it on Mic'd Up about the dangers of marijuana and its moral evil. But there was a very interesting article recently that was bringing together a lot of studies, and I bring it up. It was talking about the influence of schizophrenia, or the influence of marijuana on the prevalence of schizophrenia in young people. And obviously schizophrenia, very serious mental disease, that can sometimes have a violent component. And certainly if an individual is predisposed towards violence and they have schizophrenia as well, then obviously they have a series of difficulties with schizophrenia, which can manifest in an increase in violence, which again, you've got this other problem of now it seems everyone is on flipping marijuana. In my little town, the village, it's called a village, but the little city where I live, it's a tiny little thing. And we had, the city council decided that they would allow two in my tiny little 3,000 population city, 2 marijuana dispensaries. Then, thankfully, somebody put a thing on the ballot. It was on the ballot in 2020. And in 2020, 2022, I think 22. And it was on the ballot there. But the way that it was phrased is that if you wanted to approve the marijuana thing, you had to vote no. And if you wanted to
so
say...
they tricked him with the word.
So they didn't trick him. It's just the way it had to be done. Because it was like, should the charter be amended to disallow or something like this? Should be... Anyway, so... yes, so thankfully it got shot down. But yeah, my little tiny village, 3,000 people, was going to have 2 marijuana dispensaries, and I'm like, really? And this seems, it's
all over the place. You
everywhere.
can't drive anywhere here in Metro Detroit. I'm not talking about just down in the hood in the city, whatever. I'm talking about everywhere. There are constant billboards everywhere. I have to say, some of the names that they've called their pot dispensers,
they're great.
They're actually pretty witty.
Fantastic.
But they're everywhere. I mean, how many freaking pot dispensaries are there?
Oh, there even in small, agricultural towns, you see like the pot hub there. You pass through. I was, with some of the guys from studio going up like duck hunting up north towards Lake Huron, and it's like, here's a town of 1,200. Oh, there's the green neon lights signaling the giant pot dispensary that always has lines for it. The issues aren't unrelated, by the way. Pot is soma. The government is creating this dystopian, disgusting, amoral society where we have trickle-down poverty. Everyone, groceries are getting more expensive. You can't have a gas stove. Your freedoms are going by the wayside. Your washing machine doesn't use water anymore because that's bad for the environment, says Obama. Life is becoming harder and harder, and our freedoms are getting cinched away slowly. And, the government has an interest in being like, well, drug yourself up so you get an endorphin rush. In doing brain damage to yourself. Actually, Northwestern University study showed that even recreational amounts of marijuana actually cause brain damage, permanent, unalterable changes in your brain waves. Very reputable study. Beyond that, this messes with serotonin levels and it creates people with a proclivity to violence. But it's all a pattern of turning people into serfs.
It devalues you, pot, all of it, devalues your own sense of your own worth.
Yeah.
You're not thinking of yourself as a child of God while you're sitting there, doobing up, toking up.
You're not even thinking
just not even in your, just not even on your radar.
Human, I think, that, or you're lesser so. And to bring it back to this issue of, arms control, because kind of that's actually what I would want to talk about. This is about, yes, guns, fine, because guns represent not the cutting edge of weapons technology, but they are certainly, the most advanced of the ubiquitous available forms. when you talk about the idea of you have your own personal arms, and there is a long and storied tradition of the bequeathment of personal arms from one person to another. There's a long and storied tradition of that. There's a wonderful line in one of Thomas Harris's novels, which is where people who have lived while they are protected by others do not understand that. And it's a wonderful line when Clarice Starling is given her mentor's 45. And it's a very powerful scene. But there is this notion of your personal possession of arms for your personal defense and your personal possession of your things. It becomes your responsibility.
Sure.
If you're doped up on marijuana, or you are doped up on reality TV, or you are doped up on some other form of just thing that's going to give you a bunch of serotonin and stuff, and this quick high, this quick buzz, you are not responsible in many ways. You haven't been handed that responsibility and that authority to do this. You are not a fully and truly human. You just become this kind of cog.
You don't see yourself in the role of what you really are. Child of God spiritually, citizen, trying to defend, promote good, battle evil, bad, whatever. All of those things just, it's not even theoretical. It's just completely absent in your head. And, the no guns, why do we need, you'll own nothing, including guns. And you'll be happy. Here's your pot.
It is the same trajectory, though. As the state swells and it becomes more dystopian, then you have to, sate people. You have to make them passive. Here's your soma. Yeah, just sit down, shut up, and enjoy your little high. And we're going to keep growing the government, making you more and more dependent. And remember, guns are a very important cog in that overall plan of making you absolutely dependent on the government.
Do you think there is, and we'll use Michigan here, when the pot, well, there were two votes. There was one in Detroit, I think in 2000, I think it was about 2000.
It was pretty early.
16 or something like that?
No, it was before then for Detroit, because I remember we sat in the old studio and talked about it.
Oh gosh, well, it would have been 2012 at the latest.
Yes, it was I think it was there. And this is the one I'm talking about, because this was whether or not they should allow it in Detroit.
That was just the city of Detroit.
Yeah, and there was this whole discussion about it.
Of course, it won overwhelmingly.
Of course it did, but it was a terrible idea, because Detroit is a border city.
Yeah,
but the Canadians weren't happy.
And everybody, of course, in the suburbs was like, ooh, now we go down there. Well, now not anymore. No. Now we've saved gas. That's good. People can just walk down the block to their pot shop in the suburbs. The whole state passed it. Yes, you can.
You can get it delivered. My next door neighbor gets it delivered all the time.
What's the nickname is Doorhash.
Doorhash.
Is there a, I have to say they're good. They're very witty expressions surrounding this whole thing.
They didn't come up with those while they were high.
Is there I can't remember what it was an overwhelming vote for the state to legalize pot. I think it was like 68 or 69% in favor. I mean, that's just astounding that many people, and it wasn't really, when you think about the abortion referendum in 2022 here in November in Michigan, wasn't that far behind there either. It was like 56%, I think it was, or something. All of these things that just keep moving along, they're all interrelated to each other. To your point, it's to, have sex, kill the kids, so you don't have any consequences, here, get high, hey, give us your guns, hey, here's some porn, all of it. It's all one big giant ball of filth and evil and wickedness and rot that is, simply pushed in various different little things. And if they have an opportunity to, plug something emotionally and throw it on, CNN or whoever, local news, well, then they do. So if there's a shooting, it's like, oh, get rid of the guns, it's awful. Oh, this poor person. Remember how the Detroit initiative was sold so that they went and interviewed, local media went and interviewed tons of people constantly on the fact that they were suffering with some pain or some cancer or something. So that's why we need to sit here and toke up, not take the pills, made from the TCH or THC, whatever it is, to lessen the pain, but actually toke up. That was the sort of the camel's nose.
This is the ridiculousness that, is that, I mean, obviously, fine, you're pushing the notion of marijuana in order to get high. That's wholly what it's about. Don't tell me that you can use hemp to make paper or make rope. Don't tell me that it's good for cancer. Don't do it, because all the studies, fine, yes.
Excuses.
Fine, yes, absolutely, certainly. There is a whole argument, I think it was Randolph Hearst, like suppress the marijuana industry, suppress the hemp industry, because he was like, had paper mills and this sort of stuff. I think that's the story. But anyway, certainly somebody did. You can use it to make rope. You can, absolutely, yes, there are active ingredients.
Because we need all that rope.
You know what, you've got to have rope. Serial killers have got to tie their people up. You can use it there. Certainly the active ingredient can be used in cancer. I think every single study suggests that when they're directly injected into tumors, et cetera, et cetera. But you can't go out and light up. I watched a James Bond movie about a week ago. One of the Timothy Dalton ones. And despite the fact he's from Wales, he's a decent guy. But Timothy Dalton, right, lights up in the movie. And because obviously playing James Bond. And before the movie, there is a warning to say this movie shows tobacco being used. This is like an old time, this is not respected. Okay. Just say it's marijuana. Just say James Bond is just like toking it up a bit, to take the edge off because he's killed too many communists and he just can't handle it anymore. This is it. He's given up on the alcohol. He's given up on slamming the vodka martinis. Now he's just toking up to take the edge off so that he can manage to do one last job. Just say that and you don't have to warn. Smoking tobacco has become completely socially unacceptable in this country and practically all across the West. But oh no. You stick the devil's lettuce in there and apparently now it's all fine.
Even though it's more carcinogenic. But the point, pound per pound, marijuana is more carcinogenic than actually tobacco. The point is, I think, to bring this full circle, is that this is an issue of government control. The government has an interest, going to the marijuana thing, in sating our sense of justice, in dulling the sense of justice as they do more and more unjust things to bring us under their control. So these issues are integrally related. But the fact is, and the founding fathers, I forget which one said this, a government that doesn't trust its people to bear arms is itself not worthy of trust. And it's something to ruminate on. Owning guns is central for so many things of just self-preservation and subsistence. It's a means to keep government tyranny at bay. It's a means to protect yourself. It's a means to hunt. Ultimately, it's your very means to sustain yourself in this world. And that's what's being taken away. And we have useful idiots like Blaise Supich who are lining up to be a mouthpiece for the Democrats, being a shill, being a pawn in their game. And it ultimately is not tenable from a Catholic position. If you look in the Catechism, we have a right to self-defense. Guns are the great equalizer. I might not be able to overpower every man on the street who might want to do me evil, do me harm. Women especially will not be able to overpower people who might want to do them great bodily harm or kill them. And guns equalize that. I remember before it was too politically incorrect, I think it was Guns and Ammo or one of the firearms magazine used to have stories of guns, how they protected somebody's life. And my dad used to actually read them to my family out of the section. I think that's gone the way of the dodo bird because it's politically incorrect. But a lot of it would be, women whose husbands were gone actually had to protect their family and successfully did against an armed assailant. So it is our life that's really on the line. Our life and our liberty and our ability to protect those things, those precious treasures. And those are what's under attack. And we have a guy like Blaise Supich speaking as if he's speaking for the church, and he's decrying that. And that itself needs rebuke.
Yeah, well said, David. Well said. All right, thank you for joining us for today's episode of The Download. Now, please join us as we finish in prayer, as we do every day, begging our Blessed Mother's intercession for our nation and our church, because, boy, do they both need it. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Salve Regina, Mater Misericordiae, vita dulcedo et spes nostra salve. Ad te clamamus exules filiae Eve. Ad te suspiramus gementes et flentes in hac lacrimarum vale. Ea ergo advocata nostra, illos tuos misericordes oculos ad nos converte. Et Iesum benedictum fructum ventris tui, nobis post hoc exilium ostende. O clemens, O pia, O dulcis Virgo Maria. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Thank you for joining us again for this episode of The Download. We premiere a new episode like this every weekday, right here at 5 p.m. Eastern. From all of us here at Church Militant, God bless you.